Alright, so I just finished this anime a day or two ago, and it's pretty good, as the title says. Before I forget about it, wanted to make a quick video, and I have another video in the works, but I couldn't quite get it out in time, so this should tide you over. This is my first video about anime. I know I usually do video games, but I just wanted to talk about it, and I figure I kind of just talk about whatever on this channel. Effectively, moist critical light. Really easy because there's not much editing in these kinds of videos. I can just sit down and talk, maybe edit out a few points if the audio is slow. But they're just very nice and they feel fun to do, hence why I do them. So this anime was recommended to me by a chatter, and if you have any other recommendations, here's your chance. Leave them in the comments. Come join me on stream, maybe I'll discuss anime. Well, I will happily discuss anime, in fact, because I like talking about anime. And I'm looking for recommendations. Towards the end of the video, I'll get into kind of what recommendations I'm looking for and all of that, so either skip to there or just stick around. But yeah, this anime I haven't really seen a lot of talk about. I did do some research into it just so I could get like more of a basis on the source material and everything. And there's just not a whole bunch on this anime, which I think there's some good reasons for that. One, this anime can be kind of unapproachable just because it has a lot of gore and a lot of nudity. So anyone who is sensitive to pretty much any subject is going to have a hard time watching this because it's unavoidable. Now, let's get into actual plot synopsis of what all goes on in this anime. It features a girl who is a mutant, hellbent on killing humanity, and she has an alter ego who is effectively just a nice girl. She's hellbent on destroying humanity, organization wants her back or dead, kind of shifts throughout the story. The anime feels a lot like Code Geass in a way. It kind of were striking those same nerves to me, and I love Code Geass. Code Geass is a masterpiece. Unfortunately, this is like a Code Geass that was kind of just not put in the oven for long enough. Or maybe it was put in the oven upside down, right side out. Not too sure. It feels like a Code Geass that just has really weird pacing, introduces characters that it wants to do more with and wants to give backstories, but then doesn't have time to. So those characters do some stuff, but it's not wholly important. Let's get into one of the points I think this anime kind of struggles a bit. So the pacing feels kind of weird, and the story feels like it's kind of all over the place at times. For example, there's a lot of times with the pacing where it feels like they lose all their tension because they immediately go into a backstory point. Because they're building something up, building up a lot of action. Backstory point, you lose all that tension, it kind of sucks. Though, I will say, the backstory is pretty good for the characters who get them. Because not every character gets that backstory, which kind of sucks, because a lot of characters could have used it. You're sitting there like, oh, that character's going to be important later, and they do some stuff, and they're like, yeah, this guy is really important, and then they don't get as much backstory or screen time as you really would have expected, and they just kind of pop in. The main person who I'm referring to here is like the soldier dude, the murderous soldier dude. I don't recall ever getting a backstory for him, and he's set up in the first episode, not used for a few episodes. He comes back, meets this character, and it's like, shit, not used for a few more episodes. And I'm like, oh, okay. I think he might have done some minor things. And then he meets this character, and you're like, he knows everybody. He could, like, spill the beans to literally anybody and be, like, majorly progressing the plot over here. And then he disappears for a few more episodes. And then it's like, oh, shit. Now he meets this dude, and it's the final time he meets somebody, and it's like, yeah, he's gonna have like a big showdown and fight somebody for a little bit. And that's the end of him. Series is over at this point. So he felt a bit weird. He felt like he was supposed to be important. He was a reoccurring character who came back a lot, but he kind of just felt like one of those mini bosses in a game where they're just there for you to fight a bunch, and they get upgrades every time a little bit. And it's like, yeah, all right. Look, this is my new ultra form to kill you, or whatever. But that's kind of going on a tangent on this character who is not actually that important. I just thought a lot of characters would be important, and then they turned out to not be as important. So another thing, like, where the plot is, like, all over the place is they reveal, oh, this character has horns, and oh, this character has horns, and it's like, whoa, that's going to be important later, because that's a reveal. And they kind of make it a reveal, but not really. And then they don't ever do anything with it. They don't explain how they got the horns. They don't explain anything. Now, in the manga, they do actually explain how they got horns, and it does tie into the story. But the anime, you can clearly tell they didn't have time, didn't cover it for whatever reason. And then they also reveal, like, the main antagonist. Really depends on who you call an antagonist in this story. But they reveal, like, the main organization who I would consider the main antagonist. They briefly reveal some of the goals in, like, 2 sentences. And it's like, oh, okay. And they don't really touch on that, and nor do they progress that much of their own goals. Because they only touch on it like 3 episodes before the story's coming to a conclusion, and that's kind of tough. So here's where we're going to get into a bit of spoiler territory, because I do want to cover the ending, because the ending feels like it had a lot of plots going on. They somehow managed to go through the entire thing and just resolve almost nothing, which kind of sucks. So one, the organization didn't get resolved at all. So a lot of their members died, and a lot of their mutants died. By a lot, I mean, well, one, actually. Literally one of their mutants died. I don't know if they have more mutants than just 3. They only showcase 3, but it seems like they did, considering a plot point before was, oh hey, we have too many of these guys, we can't hold more. If you can only hold 3, that's kind of sad. So they should still have more mutants, not to mention the head honcho of it is still alive. They still have the goal of like, oh, I want to go in and turn the entire species into this, and I'm going to join this mutant species and become a Diclonius, or whatever they're called. And cool, but that guy's still alive, never really touched on again. They end the story without resolving most of the research side of it. I say researchers, organization side, same thing. They do resolve kind of longish black hair guy's story right here. He dies with his daughter. That was pretty good. They solved that. He actually got a good backstory. That was cool. So when we look at the actual ending, what happens is effectively the girl Lucy dies, but not really. Like right in the last few frames of the show, she presumably comes back. So it's left ambiguous. I don't necessarily mind ambiguous endings. I feel like it would have been a lot stronger of an ending if they just honestly killed Lucy. I think that would have been like, oh, okay. This is a pretty sad and dark show. Why not give it a pretty sad and dark ending? Kill off his character. Would have made sense. I feel like they really built up to that well with the whole, this is a future I cannot have. You go live this future for me, because this is something I can't have. I don't deserve to have it after all I have done. And I'm like, yeah, that's strong. I like that as a premise, and I would have been very happy if she died. And not because I disliked the character or anything. I just thought that would have been the best way to end the character. They also, I should mention, don't touch on her being the queen that much like they do. They mention, oh, Lucy is the queen, that's why we need her, but they really don't go too hard into the reproduction aspect of it, which I know that out of context sounds awfully weird. But like the 3rd episode, they mention, hey, you have to be very careful. In fact, we have to castrate you because her tentacle hand things, invisible hands, can turn you into one of them, or not turn you into one of them, but later explained it can make it when you reproduce, you'll reproduce Diclonius, the mutant species. They don't touch on that a whole bunch. Because I really thought that was going to come into an aspect of like, oh, she infects the main character and now he has to live with that. That didn't end up mattering at all. It mattered like some, but mostly for backstory reasons. It never necessarily mattered in the sense of relevancy. It never became relevant aside from backstory reasons. No, they don't explain anything past that point on like, only the queen can reproduce. That's where, again, I feel like the organization was slighted. They, in 2 sentences, effectively say, we want to become Dicloniuses. We need the queen to do that. Why do they need the queen? Fuck if I know. They didn't explain that shit to me. They pretty much were just like, we want Lucy because she is the queen. Take her alive. And then the organization then proceeds to just try to kill her. And it's like, all right, is that insubordination? Is that just different commands lost in translation? Who knows? Absolutely who knows? Again, I want to reiterate, I actually really enjoyed this anime. I finished this stuff in record time, only about 5 days, was binging it throughout, and I only watched it about 3 days concurrently. So yeah, I actually very much like this anime. I did just want to go over some flaws it had. They did pretty well on, again, the researcher and his daughter's story. That was pretty well. Unfortunately, it was done within the span of about 2 episodes. So it's like subplot, and that's the only plot that really felt fully finished. I think the ideal ending, and this is kind of going off what the manga did, because the last 2 episodes were changed quite a bit from the manga. If you don't want manga spoilers, click off now. I don't see why you wouldn't, though. I have not read the manga, but I have just researched a general synopsis of what happens in the manga. And the manga, what happens is, in the final showdown, Lucy starts to get more strong because she's the queen, and that's explained a bit more. Eventually, her arms can reach all the way to space, which is pretty cool, honestly. And effectively, she could have easily killed the entire world. In the final fight, she destroys the entire research facility, that wraps their point up. Additionally, it's also explained that there's a male Diclonius, or there was, and he was a plot point for a bit. And they got more into the reproduction aspect, what the organization's plans were, turned themselves into Dicloniuses, and all of that. And I believe they also fleshed out the characters much, much more than in the anime, where it's like, backstory, cool, this character's established. Backstory, this character's established. I mean, a few characters just didn't get that treatment, unfortunately. The end has Lucy dying, effectively. All that's left is the Lucy that was convincing her to murder. So the one that was wrapped in toilet paper or whatever, looked kind of like a mummy, and was like, kill people, join my side. That's all that was left, and that's like her murderous intentions or whatever. It makes Coda, the main character, have to kill her, and some stuff goes down, but effectively, yeah. He finishes off that side of her. She has already died at this point. Cool, and then it kind of does revert back to what the anime said, where it's like, but maybe not. He gets married to his cousin. Kind of weird. Just wanted to address that, since it was like, man, that's a wild thing to fucking say. Just, oh yeah, he gets married to his cousin. For someone not watching the anime, would be like, well, where the fuck did that come from? How does this play into things? It really kind of doesn't. But yeah, it's something. He meets two girls. One of them is named Lucy. One of them is named New. Cool. That kind of is like, what if she reincarnated or whatever? I won't get into speculation on the manga, because again, I haven't read the manga. I feel like the story has a very strong storytelling when it's very much trying. For example, I felt like the backstory between Coda and Lucy was very good. I feel like the moments leading up, moments after the backstory, where they kissed and all of that, that was pretty good, honestly. I really liked that, and I was watching very eagerly, and had they ended it there, I think it would have been much higher on the rating, and it's my headcanon that Lucy just died. Ignore that after credits scene, because it is a lot better that way. It felt like they were too scared to take a plunge into it, that where they just wanted to do something a little bit more and just kind of botched it. Plugging this bad boy into a stone meter, I'll give it a 6.8 out of 10. It's pretty good. It has a lot of strong points, and it has a lot of potential, and I really like the story, the concept, and I like where they did build things, and I like the backstories they did give characters. The characters are interesting backstories, but it's really scattered around. The pacing is really off on when they put the backstories, when they put the action, feels off, and everything is left unresolved near the end, which really freaking sucks. This felt like it should have been a 24 episode season, but unfortunately it was only 12. I'd recommend it to a very diehard Code Geass fan, or someone similar who is like really into dramas, and will go into it knowing that the story is a little scattered and not fully fleshed out. It can be pretty good. All things considered, I'm very happy I watched it, and I finished it very quick because I very much enjoyed watching it. I think that's going to be about it. Oh, I'm going to go over, actually, before I leave, I'm going to give some fucking guidelines on if you want to give me anime recommendations. So if you do want to recommend me anime, and maybe I'll make a little video on it if I find it particularly interesting, probably will. I've watched a lot of anime, so don't be surprised if I've seen a lot of them. Probably don't spend a bunch of energy explaining what they are, giving a synopsis. If you really want to, I'll still read it, but if I've already watched it, it'll be for naught. Plus, I generally read the synopsis before of all the titles. I just make a big old list of titles, read the synopsis before, so rest assured, I will most likely read the synopsis for myself, and decide how much I want to watch it. I'll watch almost any anime out there, I'm not gonna lie, from Demon Slayer, shonens like Naruto I've watched, to romances like Love is War, Golden Time, Angel Beats, not really a romance, more of a drama. Recently, I have been more into a drama category, so if you have any great drama recommendations, please send them over. This is part of the reason this struck so well for me, despite being somewhat half-baked. Dramas were just really hitting well at that time. Code Geass, another good example. Code Geass is one of my favorite animes. Steins Gate, another awesome example of a good drama. Those are kind of dramas that I think are really cool. But yeah. So yeah, that's going to be about... that sounds too moist critical. Fuck. Gotta put my own riff on it. Man, but just yelling bye kind of has Ludwig vibes, if you feel me. Fuck, man. I don't fucking know. This is called Stop Recording.